Hello everyone and welcome to My Future Africa. If this is your first time on our channel, we encourage you to subscribe to us on Facebook, like our Facebook page, follow us on Twitter and subscribe to us on YouTube. Today we'll be discussing on a very interesting topic, which is the origin of vaccines, and which is quite interesting because this is something that some of us do not really look into. Sometime last week, I Google searched on a particular subject, who invented vaccination, and a particular name came up. It was Edward Jenner, and I then searched black inventor of vaccines, and I saw a whole lot of stories coming up. So we'll be using this opportunity to really discuss the history of vaccination and the idea behind it. So this is not medical advice, this is just based on research. I will encourage you to look through the links that are referenced in this video and do some personal studies as we go through the history of vaccination. The title of today's video is The Unspoken Origin of Vaccines. Sometime in the early 1700s, about a century before Edward Jenner received the idea of a smallpox vaccine based on cowpox virus. Smallpox was going through New England and other American colonies. In Massachusetts, United States, colonists there saw smallpox arrive with cargo ships to Boston over time. There wasn't much authorities could do beyond imposing quarantines and treating the sick. The news was terrifying to colonists in Massachusetts. Smallpox had made it to Boston and was spreading rapidly. The first victims, passengers on a ship from the Caribbean, were shut up in a house identified only by a red flag that read, "God have mercy on this house." Meanwhile, hundreds of residents of the bustling colonial town had started to flee for their lives, terrified of what might happen if they exposed themselves to the frequently deadly disease. This changed in 1721, thanks to knowledge from Onesimus. Onesimus was an enslaved West African man who was sold to Cotton Mather, an influential minister in Boston, who gave him the name Onesimus after an enslaved man in the Bible whose name meant useful. Mather had bought Onesimus in 1706 and came to learn from him. When Mather asked Onesimus if he had ever had smallpox back in Africa, Onesimus described the practice of variolation to prevent smallpox epidemics. Variolation involved first taking infected material like pus from the blisters of smallpox patients. A healthy person then receives the material through a cut in the skin in a controlled manner and under supervision of a physician. This helped ensure that the smallpox symptoms would be milder but still confer some sort of immunity in the future. People who practice this still experience severe symptoms on some occasions, but the number of those that died was smaller in proportion to those who acquired it naturally from another person. After learning from Onesimus, Cotton Mather began to research on the practice of variolation. He found that it was practiced in many parts of the world, not just in Africa. As recorded in his diary, he stated, "The new method used by the Africans and Asiatics to prevent and abate the dangers of the smallpox and infallibly to save the lives of those that have it, wisely managed upon them." Places like China and Turkey had their own versions of variolation based on similar principles described by Onesimus. This practice was so effective in conferring immunity that African slaves sold in Massachusetts at the time were deemed to be more valuable if they bore the scar of variolation. In 1716, Mather wrote to the Royal Society of London about how he had the method from a Negro man, Onesimus, who is pretty intelligent fellow, in quotes, he said. Privately, Mather wasn't speaking as kindly of Onesimus. In his diary that same year, he complained that Onesimus proves wicked and grows useless, froward meaning ungovernable, and immoritus meaning rebellious. This research finding and correspondence with medical experts at the time encouraged Cotton Mather to push for variolation in the colonies. He burned some of his political and social capital in advocating for variolation before the next epidemic hit Boston. His proposal met with resistance, and anti-variolation sentiment was strong in response to the idea. Mather and Boston were vilified for suggesting Africans might have valuable scientific knowledge. One document stated, "As word spread of the new medicine, the people of Boston were terrified and angry. According to Mather, they raised an horrid clamor. Their rage came from many sources: fear that inoculation might spread smallpox further, knowledge that the bubonic plague was on the rise in France, and a righteous fury that it was immoral to tamper with God's judgment in this way." There was a racial tone to their response as well, as they rebelled against an idea that was not only foreign but African. One critic and eminent doctor attacked Mather for his Negroish thinking. Some of Mather's opponents compared inoculation to what we would now call terrorism, as if a man would willfully throw a bomb into a town. Indeed, one local terrorist did exactly that, throwing a bomb through Mather's window with a note that read, "Cotton Mather, you dog, damn you, I will inoculate you with this, with a pox to you." By 1721, half of Boston's residents were infected with smallpox, about 11,000 people. A physician by the name Zebdiel Boylston, who believed Cotton Mather and Onesimus on variolation, inoculated his own son and the slaves in his possession. The result was that 1 in 40 people inoculated by Boston died from smallpox, as compared to those who acquired it naturally, where 1 in 7 died. Meaning that people who acquired the disease naturally were almost 6 times more likely to die than those who acquired it by variolation. At the end of the epidemic, 14% of the population of Boston was dead. After this, the practice became more accepted in colonies affected by smallpox epidemics. By 1796, the vaccine based on cowpox would be developed by Edward Jenner. By the mid-1800s, variolation was discontinued in favor of immunization with cowpox, as immunization was safer and more effective than variolation. Onesimus would go on to partially purchase his freedom, but still remain in service to Cotton Mather. In 1980, the World Health Organization declared smallpox entirely eradicated due to the spread of immunization worldwide. Smallpox remains the only infectious disease on record which humans have successfully eradicated from the earth. So we can rightly say at this point that the idea of vaccination did have an earlier origin than is recorded in history or can be found on Google. For those of us who are new to this channel, I encourage you to subscribe and hit the notification bell if you subscribe to us on YouTube to get more notification when we publish our next video. And we encourage you to subscribe to us on Facebook and on Twitter as well. We look forward to seeing you in our next video. Bye bye.